Here's a graph of the greatest 15 rookie seasons in NBA history based on essential stats. As you can see, this list is full of Hall of Famers like Allen Iverson or Hakeem Olajuwon. Also, names that don't get enough love like Terry Cummings or Bernard Kings. All of these players are older guys, except for Luka Doncic and Victor Wembanyama. But unlike Luka, Wembanyama is the most blatant outlier on this list because of one stat that no one seems to be talking about. There has never been a rookie in the NBA that has won Defensive Player of the Year, but Victor Wembanyama might be the first one to do it. With his 8-foot wingspan and standing at 7'4", scouts knew that Wembanyama was going to be a great defensive player in the league, but no one would expect that he would be this good. Last season, the San Antonio Spurs were the worst defensive team of all time. Let me say that one more time and hear me clearly. Out of the 78 years the NBA has existed, there has never been a worse defensive team than the 2022-2023 San Antonio Spurs. This was the roster that Victor Wembanyama was welcome to, and not much of the roster had changed. But yet, Wembanyama has taken the worst defense of all time and made them the 22nd best defense this season. This is a generational defensive talent. This year, Wembanyama is averaging 3.4 blocks and 1.3 steals a game, which are better numbers than 7 out of the last 10 Defensive Player of the Years. In fact, halfway through his rookie season, Victor Wembanyama had recorded more blocks and steals than Rudy Gobert did his entire 2018 Defensive Player of the Year season. He isn't just good at defense, he is otherworldly on the defensive end. His ability to cover the floor is unlike anything we've ever seen. Before I get too far into this video, there's a term I want you to know. It's called gravity. And no, I'm not talking about that gravity that the Earth has. I'm talking about gravity in the basketball world. This is a popular term that gets thrown around on NBA Twitter and Reddit. When we talk about gravity in basketball, we're basically talking about the ability that a player has to pull the attention of the defenders away from everyone else on the court. For example, Steph Curry is such a great shooter that when he comes off a screen, it usually draws 2 defenders to him, leaving other players wide open. That is gravity. You can say the same thing about a guy like Damian Lillard. When he's coming off a high ball screen, you usually see 2 people draw to him. That is gravity. But with Victor Wembanyama, his gravity is on the defensive end of the basketball. Many times we see the Spurs use Wembanyama in this drop coverage because of his insane ability to guard both guys on a pick and roll. Let me show you some plays for example. On this play right here, he stops Chris Paul on the drive and still has the ability to almost block Dario Saric's jump shot. On this very next play, we actually see Victor Wembanyama get caught here. He helps a little bit too much on this roll, and for anybody else in the league, this right here is a late contest 3-pointer. But for Victor Wembanyama, instead of just contesting the shot, he actually blocks a 3-pointer. You can also see he has this unnatural ability to recover when he looks like he's been beat. Whether it's a pump fake or a blow by, Wembanyama still gets the ball way more than he should. Players are literally scared to shoot or attack the rim against Wembanyama. This is a fast break where 2 Grizzlies players have an open layup and neither of them dare to test Wembanyama at the rim. Or this play where not a single Wizard player wants to shoot a shot around the rim because of Wembanyama. That, folks, is gravity. His presence on the court is enough to make players second guess shots that they would normally take. And he's not just doing it with blocks or inside the paint. He's been a deterrent in passing lanes also. This is actually one of my favorite plays from Wembanyama. He reaches from the top of the key into a guy driving to the rim and gets a steal. Like, this play doesn't even look real. He looks like Straw Hat Luffy stretching to get a steal. It's unbelievable. You would surely think that a talent this good is a lock for Defensive Player of the Year, but most likely they're not going to give it to him and they're going to give it to Gobert once again. And I could make a whole separate video about my issues with the Defensive Player of the Year award. Like, that's not this video, and we'll continue on. Wembanyama's generational defense should not be ignored, but we also have to look at how great he's been on the offensive side. The whole concept of a guy who's nearly 8 foot tall, able to shoot from 30 feet from the court, is mind-blowing itself. But what takes it to the next level is they shoot 32% from 3 and 41% on pull-up 3-pointers, which ranks him amongst the league's most efficient pull-up 3-point shooters this season. For fans and most analysts, his 3-point shooting is what always will stick out, which sadly overshadows one of his most fascinating parts of his game, which is his playmaking. Now, Wembanyama's not Jokic or Sabonis, but he's shown flashes of being a great playmaker. His natural feel for the game and his ability to look over the defense has shown that he could be a great passer. He has a diverse assist portfolio, making passes from the low post and the elbow, handling ball in pick and roll, in transitions, and even driving kicks. One thing that he still needs to improve on though is taking care of the basketball, but he has the potential of being a good passer in this league. Now undoubtedly, Wembanyama has lived up to the hype that he had coming into the league. Offensively and defensively, there's little flaws in Wembanyama's game. Although there is one thing that people did have a concern about when he was getting drafted, and that was his health. Which is not a crazy assumption, especially because the number 2 overall pick a year before Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, went down with a season-ending injury. Holmgren is the American version of Victor Wembanyama. He stands at 7'1" and has the skills of a guard. This unusual skill set for a 7-footer is prone to injury, which is what happened to Holmgren when he was guarding LeBron James in an offseason Pro-Am game and got hurt for the entire year. With that happening before Wembanyama got into the league, the guard was already up, especially because outside of just Holmgren, 7-footers in the league do not have a good history of staying healthy. Kristaps Porzingis was another 7-footer with similar abilities who also dealt with injuries his entire career. Reigning MVP Joel Embiid has missed his first 2 years of his career due to injury and about half of this current season. And it goes deeper than just do it all bigs. Being over 7 foot in the NBA is a recipe for injuries. Greg Oden had a career-ending injury, Sam Bowie was never able to have an NBA career, and Yao Ming, despite his greatness, had to cut his career short due to injuries as well. And there's also numbers to back this up. In 2014, they ran numbers of the most missed games due to injuries to a lottery pick in correlation to height. Everyone under 7 feet had around the same average, while lottery picks over 7 feet had a shared missed games of 23.5. And with the history of 7-footers coming into the league and remaining healthy not being good, especially with Chet Holmgren, a guy with the same skill set as Victor Wembanyama coming out a year before getting hurt, the Spurs were super worried and wanted to avoid injuries at all costs. To keep Wembanyama as healthy as possible, they've put some strict protocols around their young star. Like no one on the Spurs staff being able to contact Wembanyama past 9:30 p.m. so he can read for an hour and a half before he goes to sleep. Many speculated that they might even low manage Wembanyama, as they are famous of doing with Tim Duncan. And they were right. The Spurs set a strict limit on minutes per game for Wembanyama. He is not allowed to play in more than 30 minutes in a single game. And it's not like a soft 30 minutes, like, oh, we're losing by 5 and we need you. No, this is a strict 30 minutes. No matter if they're winning or losing, Wembanyama, when he gets around 30 minutes, is going to be done for the night. There's even this game where Wembanyama tries to sub himself in with his team down, and after one play he immediately gets yanked so he doesn't go over his minutes restriction. And it's kind of surreal when you watch the Spurs play to just see Wembanyama on the bench as much as he is. I mean, most stars play the majority of the first quarter, but I feel like every time I turn the Spurs, halfway through the first quarter he's already on the bench and you probably won't see him until the second half of the second quarter. Seeing a guy of this talent playing regular starter minutes is something that is not common in the NBA, even for a rookie. In fact, if you look at every rookie of the year and rank them by minutes per game, you would have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll a little bit more until you find where we would put Victor Wembanyama if he would win that award. At 29 minutes per game, he would be between Mike Miller and LaMelo Ball, making him the 4th lowest in minutes per game of any rookie of the year in league history. And if you think about that and everything that he's done in his rookie season, and realize that he's done it on some of the fewest minutes we have ever seen from a guy of his talent, it just amplifies the case that Victor Wembanyama might just be the greatest rookie of all time. But I have one more thing I have to show you. Remember that chart I showed you at the beginning? Let's look at it one more time. And this time, let's scale Victor Wembanyama's minutes up to a typical minutes for a rookie of his talent. And well, if you adjust his stats, he's on a completely different planet, blowing everybody out the water. Like, can you just imagine how good Wembanyama would be if he was able to play just over 30 minutes a game, just like 31 or 32 minutes a game? Oh wait, you don't have to, because the Spurs, Well, they decided to lift this restriction in the last couple months of the season, and we've seen what Wembanyama is capable of when he gets to play in regular star minutes. Let me read you some numbers. 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 blocks, and 1 steal in 31 minutes against the Indiana Pacers. Next game, 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 blocks in 36 minutes against the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, one more. And the other night, a career high in points and rebounds with 40 points, 20 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 block, and 2 steals on 38 minutes against the New York Knicks. Mind you, Jalen Brunson had 61 points that night, and Wembanyama was the one who came along with the victory. This is just a glimpse of how good Wembanyama really can be. And all those games I listed were W's for the struggling San Antonio Spurs. And the 2 games that I mentioned to you that were over 35 minutes, those were overtime games. Most of the time, we only see Wembanyama playing around 31 to 32 minutes a night. He hasn't even had a game where he has played in 40 minutes yet. Wembanyama has still yet to hit superstar minutes, but is giving us superstar production. And whether you are someone who bought into the Victor Wembanyama hype or not, let me just tell you something. The hype is real, and it's well deserved. Every time you turn on Victor Wembanyama, he is doing something that makes you just shake your head, almost in just disbelief that he is really this good at this age. I usually don't make bold claims on this channel, and I try to stay away from my personal takes. But let me be the first to tell you this. Barring injury, Victor Wembanyama will be a top 5 player in the league by the end of next season. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially entered the Victor Wembanyama era in the NBA.